This episode is brought to you by Americas Rehab Campus. Get on the road to recovery with the best rehab in beautiful Arizona. Dial 1-833-272-7342. That's 1-833-ARC-REHAB. Hey guys, Buddha here. Thank you so much for tuning in to part 2 of this episode. Without further ado, let's jump right back into it.
And that day, my mom was telling the police that she was going to send me to treatment. I think she was like trying to lessen whatever charges were possibly coming my way. Once they realized that my friend had had my daughter and she had her because I was passed out. Like I had said earlier that they had came in, they tore up the whole house.
Yeah.
It was just a little apartment, but they came in, they tore it up. And while we were outside, one of the cops looks at me and he said, do you remember me?
Really?
And I'm looking at him and I'm like, yeah, you were just inside tearing up my house. And he said, no, 3 days ago, I picked you up off the side of the road when I arrested you. And I had no idea who he was. So previously, 3 days prior to, I got arrested in the middle of the day after going to a going away party. And
that was 3 days prior?
3 days prior to.
Wow.
And I remember I walked to my house. And because one of my friends had gone back to my house, I walked to my house. They were in a bad mood. And I'm like, I'm not for bad mood times, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like,
not for bad mood times. I like it.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm out of here. You know, it's middle of the day. It's July or August, Alaska. We've only got 3 months of summer. The sun is shining. So I left. And I remember thinking to myself, I was going to the park. And when I came to, I miraculously landed outside of a little tiny co-op police station right down the street from my house on a patch of grass. And so
Jeez.
I can only imagine what was going through my mind. I was obviously blacked out because I left to go have fun. And then I was on like a little patch of grass on like the other side of the co-op police station. And I came to, the ambulance was there. They were getting my blood pressure. And they were like, Tess, don't worry. Your dad is on his way. And I was like, fuck. Why'd you call my dad? So my last name is okay. And my dad was the optometrist at Costco. And so his last name is and mind you, we're in Anchorage, Alaska, so we're the only so everyone already knew my dad for the most part, because Costco is where you go to get the best deal on glasses. So it was like all my classmates knew my dad, like, you know, it's a whole small town.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So they're like, your dad is on his way. And I was like, fuck.
Did you remember any of that stuff? Or was that whole experience when the cop approached you completely a blackout?
No, I do remember from the moment I woke up. Like I remember the experience happening. I remember the ambulance. I remember them telling me about my dad. I actually, now that I think about it, I don't remember what happened after. I don't know if, I'm sure my dad probably just had to take me. I didn't go to jail. I do know that. But yeah, but I don't remember any of the people that were working there or anything. So when the cop brought it to my attention, I remembered that happening. I just didn't know he was there.
Wow.
So that day my mom was talking to the police and she said that she knew Alaska didn't have a lot of great rehabs and that she was going to send me. Mind you, at this point, she'd already been diagnosed with cancer and her brain cancer and had already been given a year to live. So we're at about that year mark at this point. And so they said to look out of state, to send me to rehab out of state. And in hindsight, I recognized that my mom took so long to send me because she knew that her time with me was limited. But they were planning a trip to Idaho and they were already going to take my daughter. And because of this, they decided that they couldn't trust me in Alaska alone. So they ended up buying me a separate ticket. And I was so drunk by the time I got to Seattle that apparently I couldn't read my ticket gate number because I brought it to the ticket agent and I said, hey, I can't find gate, blah, blah, blah. And she grabs my ticket and she looks at me and she was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And she was like, here's a food voucher. I'm not going to allow you to fly on this next flight. And so I actually had a lot of airport stories where I, to this day, have PTSD. I've been arrested in the airport a couple of times. So,
Wow.
yeah, so that happened. And then I got arrested in Alaska 2 more times in a month. And that was finally when my parents said, okay, you are going to rehab. Okay. So, and I was down with it from the jump. From the moment that they took my daughter away from me and my mom was talking to the cops about rehab, I was all in. I was like, send me,
Yep.
I also had this idea in my head that I would go for 30 days and I would be cured because I don't fit the profile of someone who has a substance abuse problem.
Wow. And where did you end up going?
I went to Riverside, California, and I did, my first time was 30 days. They wanted me to stay for 60. I made it a little bit past 30 days and I was like, I can't do this. Like, never in my life had I been in a scenario where my freedom was taken from me, which was like, it was a huge problem, actually.
Wow.
But that goes back into childhood because my mom never took my freedom from me. So it was a huge deal when I got there. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of King or Queen Baby.
No.
So there are these books about adult children, basically. And my first therapist told me that I needed to read King Baby. I don't know if Queen Baby had been developed at that time or not, but I was like, what is this? And she was like, it's for spoiled brats like you. And never in my life had that ever crossed my mind. So honestly, like, addiction's been the biggest blessing that I've could have ever asked for, really. Because it taught me so much about myself and who I thought I was and how I thought I was going to live my life. And it really shook me up. It broke me down, chewed me up, and it spit me out. And I feel like the phoenix.
That's good. Hell yeah. And so that first time in treatment, was that, were you a first timer and you got it on lock that first time or?
God, no.
No?
No. I thought I had it on lock. And I convinced my mom to get me a ticket from California back to Anchorage. And because I had been unemployed at this point for over a year, just full blown alcoholic, in and out of jail, no rehab yet. I did go through delirium tremens and get hospitalized. That was really bad. I was in a really bad psychosis. So I thought that, the defibrillator and all that stuff that's behind your bed in the hotel room.
Yeah.
Or in the hospital room. I thought that it was all alive and that it was coming for me. And you could not tell me that this wasn't happening. And so I remember I called the nurse. I let her know what was going on and she didn't do anything about it. And so they keep coming closer and closer and closer. And I called the nurse in again. She tells me I'm not going anywhere. And I'm telling her, you don't understand. It's coming for me. And I need to leave this hospital now. And she was like, you don't understand. You're not going anywhere. And so she told me to sit in this chair and then just watch TV. But I couldn't because these things were coming for me. Like, legitimately, you could not tell me they were not coming for me. They were coming for me. So since they weren't going to let me leave the hospital, I decided I was going to leave on my own. And I had never done anything with needles before. And so I didn't know how to take my IV out. And so I just bit that plastic, which, by the way, will set the alarm off on the machine. So the alarm went off and the nursing came in, and they just ended up having to like hold me out in the lobby or whatever. Wow. That next day I woke up and I saw the nurse and I was like, oh, good morning. You know, like I wasn't confused about where I was. I knew where I was and why I was there. And I just woke up my happy self and I was like, good morning, you know, and she looked at me and she was like, do you remember last night? And slowly, like little bits and pieces started coming back to me. But thank God for Facebook, because I went and posted videos. So that way everybody could know what was going on in this hospital. Oh my God, it was mortifying. So yeah, so sorry. Yeah, not one and done. I actually was in and out of jail, rehab, and detox 9 times in a year.
Wow. How did your relationship with your parents, like how was that affected during those 9 different times? Were they supportive the entire time, or, you know, how did that work? So
when I left treatment the first time, I immediately went and got a bottle because I was like, I can control this. I'm not an addict. You know, I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
And I drank for 3 days. They wouldn't let me fly. I didn't get in trouble, but they didn't let me fly for 3 days. And I got back and I could not help my mom. So sorry, this is going to make me cry.
I've got some Kleenex right there, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Whew. My mom, who had always taken care of me, needed me to take care of her. And that was the point in me going to rehab. And because I chose to drink, I couldn't stop. Finally, though, I did get back on that plane to Alaska, but I couldn't stop drinking. And at this point, my parents still have guardianship over my daughter, and I'm not allowed to be in the house if I'm under the influence of anything. And my brother, who rode a very high horse through my drinking, he had called the cops on me once already for being in the neighborhood. And I was in a violation of my probation. And I wasn't doing anything. I was just sitting in the neighborhood, and I was just sitting in a car, smoking a Black and Mild, drinking some Four Locos and Captain.
Gangsta shit.
Yeah, just minding my own damn business. Like,
just being as G'd as you can possibly be.
Yeah. And the cops come up and, you know, they're like, are you Tess?
Did you hear this noise?
Yeah.
I don't want to freak you out. I know that's a trigger for some people.
Yeah, I'm all like, ugh. Like whenever they started putting that in rap songs.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so actually, no, they did not sound the alarm because I was in a cul-de-sac, which was on the top of a hill. So I actually got to watch them come into the neighborhood and slowly drive up to my vehicle, get out, and then ask me if I'm testing it. I mean, I want to say no, but at this point.
Man, and this was after your rehab in California, after you got out and went on a bender for a few days. This is all after all that.
Yes. This arrest happened right before I came back around Christmas time. So this is after my first stint in rehab. Anyways, sorry, I'm all like,
it's okay. No, you're fine. You're fine.
But yeah, so that had happened. They came up, they arrested me, but I was in my parents' neighborhood.
Okay.
And I know for a fact that my mom, my dad would not call the police on me because that means that my daughter gets taken from their care.
Yeah.
But like I said, my brother's riding this like on the highest of high horses. He loved this moment for me. He was like, you see what a mess she is? Like, he took the doorknob off of my childhood bedroom door. because he had to make sure that he could monitor me at all times. Like, anyways. So, okay. So I come back and I couldn't stop drinking, and my mom needed me. And I was afraid to go to that house because I was afraid that my brother was going to call the cops, and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop drinking. I couldn't help my mom. I couldn't open up her medication bottles. She needed a shot in her stomach, and I was shaking so bad. I couldn't give her shot. I couldn't even hold her pills. I was shaking so bad. So I told you that she was paralyzed. She needed help going to the bathroom. And I was trying to get her from her recliner into her wheelchair, and I couldn't hold her because I was withdrawing so bad. And I dropped her, and I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't pick her up, and I couldn't help her. And I was completely useless to her when she needed me the most. This woman who adopted me because she wanted me, and through, day in and day out, for 27 years, she was there. I couldn't help her. They sent me back to rehab. And I did 60 days. And I just moved into the sober living. And my dad called me, and he told me she wasn't going to make it. So I got on to the next flight, and she hadn't spoken in almost 2 days, but she was alive. And when I got there, she opened her eyes.
Wow.
She passed away 2 days after that. The last thing she said was to me. I tried crawling into the bed with her, and she was like, no, and like tried to push me away. And she wasn't coherent, you know. I think that she had just like felt that there was something or someone or whatever, you know, and she was just like, no. Because of my inability to take my recovery seriously, I lost all that time.
You know, going back to what you said earlier about how, and I don't know if we got this on the recording before we started recording, but how you said every experience, everything that we go through, sometimes, you know, where, like you had said, you know, sometimes we're not meant to make a huge impact, but sometimes we're just meant to, we're being run by our emotions. You know, we're here to impact somebody, right?
Yeah.
Do you see that still being in vain, or do you take it as something that you needed to experience to get you to where you're at right now, sitting in front of me?
It's absolutely something that I needed to experience to be where I'm at, because grief and loss is so difficult and unique for every person.
Yeah.
That I get to sit here today and say that I understand what it's like to lose the person that is closest to you. So my mom had passed away, and maybe a day and a half later, I was drinking again.
Were you sober when you had left the 60 days and got on the flight and everything? Yeah.
So I guess technically I can say my mom saw me sober before she died.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't really get to experience it. Not in a long time.
Yeah.
But I do know that she is with me, and she sees what I'm doing to this day. And One of the things that I did when she passed, and this has helped me a lot with dealing with grief and loss, is I picked an object and an animal. And so for her, I picked pennies and bunnies. And I just sat in a meditation and I said, what do you want your spirit animal to be? And the first thing that came to my mind was bunnies. So I was like, all right, bunnies. Yeah, I never had a bunny. I didn't own a bunny. She didn't love bunnies. Like,
Yeah.
I have no idea where this came from. But the morning of my graduation for my bachelor's, I'm standing in my grandma's kitchen window and I'm getting ready to make coffee, and I look out and there's 4 little bunnies.
Really?
Every accomplishment, that every milestone, big or small, I will either see a penny or a bunny every single time.
Wow.
And if I need to spend time in meditation with my mom, those signs will come to me. You know, like if my mom, so for meditation with like loved ones that have crossed over, for me is just like listening to your thoughts, you know? And so just like how when you sit down and you pray to God, if that's who you're praying to, you sit down and you pray with him. Well, I'll do that, but like with my mom, you know? And so I'll go like maybe months without having done that. And then all of a sudden it'll be like, I would like walk in here and like there'll be a penny on the floor and then a penny in the cup holder. And then I'll go to my office and there'll be a penny on my desk, or like I'll get out of my car and there's a penny on the ground, and I'll start to see an accumulation of these signs.
Wow.
And so that is really what has helped me to understand and deal with death. But it is a huge blessing to be able to relate to the clients that I work with, not just on an empathetic level, but to like truly understand what it is that they're feeling.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with addiction, and being able to understand what it's like to have one substance have full control over your entire life. I heard somebody compare it to a hangnail. So, you know, like when you have like one of those little hangnails.
I bite my nails all the fucking time. I hate them.
Okay.
I hate hangnails, man.
Yeah. And like they're painful, right? You don't want to pull it out.
Have you seen that meme where it has a hangnail and the guy pulls it and it's like his whole skin is?
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, no, I'm good with all that.
Yes. But he was saying that in comparison, that it's like that. Like you're sitting there all day long, just like messing with your hangnail, and like you're fixated on it. It's mental, it's physical, you feel it, it's painful, it hurts, it's irritating, it's annoying. And then you're so fixated on this one little thing, yet you've got the whole world going on around you.
Yeah.
And I know what that feels like down to a molecular level. And so I'm grateful for every experience that I've had. And I know that with my mom, a lot of what she had gone through, and looking at like her death, you know, like I told you, like the health, the depression, some of those factors that are in her life were also meant to be lessons for me to learn from too.
Yeah.
So,
man. So what was the moment in your life when you finally, that led up to this 5.5 years that you've been sober? What happened?
Gosh, there's there's so many of those. And it was after I went back and I did those 60 days, there was no doubt in my mind that I was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Whereas previously I had doubt. You know, I had to leave a little grace room just in case I wasn't an addict.
What was the name of that book you said about the spoiled brats?
King baby.
So that resonated with you too, like shit, maybe I'm spoiled or whatever. So little by little, those layers were coming off and you were starting to see the truth.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Well, for me, when I went back before they sent me to do those 60 days in California, again, I had ended up in the drunk tank. I think I was in Alaska for only 3 weeks. And I don't remember any of it.
Man.
Any of it. And so, like, I do remember waking up in the drunk tank because I had already been in violation of my probation multiple times.
Is that at the jail? The drunk tank?
Turns out it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had been Christmas shopping and I was with my mom and her best friend, and I started to feel the withdrawal coming in. So
Ooh.
to like paint you a picture of my mom, she was the one where we had like family pictures, like with a professional photographer for like Easter, Christmas. She was the first in line at Old Navy to buy like all those holiday shirts. I don't know if you remember those terribly holiday-ish holiday shirts.
You wore them before they were cool, before people had the ugly sweater parties and stuff.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. But okay, so this is how my mom was. So 2 weeks before every holiday, I had to start wearing my holiday attire. And so
That's cool.
she would be so excited,
That's
right?
cool.
She was like, and then she would like sew clothes too. So she'd like make me like a Halloween vest or whatever.
Did holidays throw up in her house? Like, was there decorations everywhere and stuff?
Yes, but nobody ever came over. Like,
really?
we always decorate. Yeah, but we never did anything at our house.
That's cool.
And so I was pretty on one that entire 3 weeks. And my mom wanted me to go Christmas shopping. And I knew I was in no state of mind to be able to go Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
So finally, one day I made that commitment to do that with her. And that was, to her, it's a very big deal, very big deal. And I asked her if I could take her card to run down a couple of stores to buy something for someone that was it was for my daughter, and so I said, hey, can you watch Aaliyah, and I'm going to run back to the store and go grab something. I just don't want her to see it.
Oh, okay.
And I knew damn well that I was taking that card and going to the bar. And we're in the mall. It's like Sunday at 2 p.m. And I guess I don't know what happened, but at the bar, they decided that they needed to get me a cab so I could go home. They got me into the cab, and I don't remember any of that. But apparently I couldn't tell the cab driver where I lived, which I think I was probably really drunk and just didn't want to tell him where I lived because I was afraid that,
Creepers, weirdos.
Yeah. So, well, no, because my daughter, my mom, my dad, my brother were all over there. So I didn't want to be dropped off at that house. But anyways, landed me at the drunk tank. And so I wake up in the drunk tank, and I'm like in a gymnasium. I've never seen this place before. There's like a metal fence in the middle. Guys are on one side, girls are on the other. And I'm like, oh my God. And then everyone's sleeping. And so this girl, though, next to me wakes up, and then I see the police officers, and they came over to her and they said, hey, it's about time that you go. We chit-chatted a little bit, and she said, well, I'm only leaving if she leaves. And they looked at me and they were like, well, Miss Paw, and I was like, oh, fuck, they know my name. And I'm not knowing how they're piecing any of this together because I don't even know where I am. And I didn't have any of my stuff, but I'm not like in jail.
Yeah,
so I'm like, I was like, fuck, man, they just remember me from last year. And like, they asked me what day it was, and I had no idea. I took a guess, and it just so happened to be that it was almost that day. Like, I think it was Sunday night it was Sunday when we were Christmas shopping. But I had no idea, and I was just drunk all the time. And so then when they had asked me, they were like, do you know what day it is? And I think I had said Monday, and it was Sunday still, but it was almost Monday. So they actually let me go. Thank God, to gastric bypass because my blood alcohol content had dropped down low enough again. So me and this girl leave, and when we walk out of the building, I look up and I see it's the jail, and I have no idea how they let me walk out of there. They knew who I was. They knew that I was in violation of my probation. I was in the drunk tank, so clearly I was wasted, and I was redlined at that point.
Man.
So why they let me walk out of there, I don't know. But they did.
Wow.
I went straight to the liquor store. And so that was kind of how that 3 weeks of being there went.
Okay.
So that was the moment that I realized that alcohol was a problem for me. So they went to put me back on the plane. I realized that I didn't need to just clean up my act, and that I would be okay, but that I was through and through an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And I got onto the plane to go back to rehab. And because I decided I was a full-blown alcoholic through and through, this is it, blah, 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 I better drink. Whew. So I convinced the person that's giving me a ride to the airport. Mind you, my dad woke me up that morning and was like, "This is it, Tess." And I'm like, I know. So, and then, so just remember that part of the story. Okay. So then I convinced the person that's giving me a ride that I just need like 2 Four Locos because alcohol at the airport's too expensive. Yeah. So I got to run
it's
it.
Caffeine. You got to wake up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I remember downing those 2 Four Locos. Of course, I bought a couple of shooters to, go alongside with that. Because after you check in at the ticket, and you get your ticket before you go through security, you want to pop into the bathroom, take a couple of shots, and then go stand in line for security.
Yeah.
So lo and behold, I get to my gate, and right across from my gate is the bar. And I was like, geez, Louise, how convenient.
Yeah.
And there's a group of people that were sitting there, and they were all drinking, having a great old time. And I order a drink, and one of them turns to me and starts talking. And then before I know it, I'm a part of what looks like their company Christmas party. And they're like, shots for everybody.
Oh,
and
man.
I remember that being called 3 times. And then I remember thinking, I better go to my gate because I have a flight I have to catch. Get to my gate, and then I wake up and I'm at baggage claim. They've got the blood pressure machine on me.
And had you gotten on the plane and left, or are you still at the same place? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm still in the same airport, but now I'm at baggage claim, which, by the way, is not where I was supposed to, where I wanted to be. That's not where the flight loaded up. So I come to, now we've got the airport police, I've got the blood pressure machine, the ambulance, paramedics, and the first thing they say to me is, Tess, your dad is on the way. And I was like,
again,
fuck!
Again. Man.
I'm like, no.
That's going to be the title of the episode. Your dad is on the way, bro. Fuck, dude.
For sure. Oh my God. Yeah, your dad is on the way. I'm like, fuck, man. And I'm like 27. Like, when are you going to stop calling the parents?
Yeah. Wow.
They're like, oh, this is Dr. Falk, your kid.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I was taken home by my dad, who then decided to go to the gym, which is a horrible idea because I then found enough money to get to the liquor store in the middle of winter in Alaska.
Man.
Okay. Yes, you best believe I was on it.
So this is like 3 pretty recent things back to back to back. Just
yeah. Oh, this is one day.
Oh,
this
wow.
I got arrested in the airport I don't know why they didn't take me to jail. Probably because of my dad.
What I'm saying though is it's showing how much of an alcoholic you were, because the situations, it's just like from back to back to back, like fucked up, I got to drink. Okay, I'm back to fucked up, I got to drink. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Because literally I was taking shots with somebody or some people literally like 12 hours, maybe 14 hours prior to.
Some horrible shit could have happened to you. Like, thank God you're good. Like, anything, bro. There's a lot of fucking weirdos out there. Like, that's crazy. That's scary. That's very scary.
That's why I'm saying the only reason the only thing I can think that I didn't get human trafficked for was because I looked expensive, and not like what I was wearing. Yeah. But my tolerance level looked expensive.
It's so funny.
Like, yeah. So, all that back to back. And so my dad's at the gym and I'm like, fuck, I've got 1 hour to truck through the snow and get back with my bottle, because God forbid I quit at this point. So then I run into our guest bathroom and I lock the door, and I'm coming to again, because mind you, each time I'm drinking, I had mentioned earlier, my average was a 0.3 minimum, and so 0.4 is already comatose levels. So without the proper tolerance,
it's as high as the fucking breathalyzers go too, is 0.4.
Oh really?
Yeah, you can't pick anything up more than that. So you're gonna fucking have a heart attack. You need to slow down.
Yeah, you're gonna die. So every time that I'm drinking, I have from the moment I wake up, I'm already going into withdrawal. I've got anywhere from 3 to 5 hours of consciousness before I'm already blacking out again. So I'm on average dipping between my comatose level, which I'm guessing is probably a high 0.4, down to a 0.3. But at no point in time could you have ever given me a breathalyzer and I would have blown zeros. But I'm literally operating where I'm awake for 3 to 5 hours, and then I'm passing out drunk. But I'm not actually sleeping, because my body is trying to filter through this massive amount of alcohol that I have constantly streaming through my system. So I'm not even getting any sleep.
No food, nothing. You're probably just fucking drinking all day. It's crazy.
All day, yes. And it's like, and then on top of that, with the gastric bypass, I already don't eat a lot. But then there comes a point in time where with alcoholism, for me, I didn't want to eat. Like, I couldn't eat. Food sounded good and felt horrible.
Okay.
So it was like, I'll just have Captain, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess if we have to have Jaeger bombs for breakfast, like.
Oh, man. Wow.
Yeah. Yes.
What did it take for you to actually flip that switch and stay sober? Like, how do you go on doing that? Drinking sober for an hour, drinking sober for an hour. I mean, you're constantly getting arrested. You're constantly going through this, right? And it's almost like kind of enabling too, if you think about it, that your parents had money, because it doesn't limit you. You know what I'm saying? It's like you could always find a way to get more.
Yes.
So like, how did you finally get to that point where you're like, I'm done?
The saying sick and tired of being sick and tired brings on a whole new meaning when you feel it. And because I had been hearing it for years. So like I said earlier, my friend, I was going to meetings with her because she had a problem with meth. And I had to support her. So I've been hearing all this. And again, nothing happens by mistake. I was in the rooms for almost 2 years prior to me being like, oh, I got a problem. Yeah. But let's see, I had gotten into a rehab relationship, love of my life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, best love ever. And we were in Orange County, California, and I was in my sober living. We were both doing really good. He was getting his CDL back. I just started school. So you had asked me earlier how long I've been in the field, and I said 6 years. You asked me how long I've been sober. I said 5.5.
Mm-hmm.
So I had just started school, and so we're getting ready to move in and get a place, or like a little apartment. And he had asked me that morning, I hadn't moved out of my sober living. He said to me, do you want to party tonight? And I remember I spent all day thinking about it, which was not something that I had ever done before. All day thinking, and I spent all day packing, and that was completely abnormal behavior for me.
Okay.
Because normally I would have like packed my shit and been gone. Like, I've got a whole life waiting for me. Everything's going to be fine. Bye, guys. And like cracking my Four Loko on the way out the door. And so that was completely abnormal behavior for me. And it wasn't until way later that night that I did actually crack a Four Loko. And I said to myself, what's going to happen this time? And at that point, I had been through so much with my addiction that I just knew that by taking that first sip, I was opening myself back up to a world of destruction. And I did it. And he was a IV meth user, and I was an alcoholic, which lo and behold don't mix very well together, because I was passed out all the time and he was awake for days. So we're in Long Beach, and it's about 2 weeks out from the relapse. And I'm like, you got to go to rehab. And I get us out to this rehab, and I'm sitting on the steps, and somebody walks up and they said, are you here for rehab? I said, yeah. And they said, well, we don't open for another hour. And I was like, okay, all right. So I go back out to the car, and I'm like, we've got enough time. We can go. I'll get you water so you can shoot up, and I'm going to get me a pint, and then we'll go to rehab. I started drinking that pint, and I don't immediately blacked out. I remember at that point, he wasn't allowed to drive my car because he kept locking me inside of it. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Like a whole nother thing. But he wasn't allowed to drive my car. And so apparently what I did is I recognized that I was dipping out of consciousness. And I pulled over into a neighborhood, and I parked all Cali-wampus and just passed out. And so somebody from that apartment building had seen my car and called the cops. And I came to, and I've got about 16 police officers and 4 cop cars. No boyfriend.
Gone.
Yeah. And I'm like, fuck. I'm in the driver's seat. I've already got 2 DUIs. This is fucking it. My life is over. And I get out of the vehicle, and apparently they were just about to bust my window open. They sat me down to talk to the police officer, and they were searching my vehicle, and they found his wallet with a bunch of stuff in it. And they found needles and a bunch of drug paraphernalia. And the cop was like, so he's like, what drugs do you do? And I looked at him and I was like, I don't do drugs. And he was like, okay. He was like, well, what's going on with your arms? I had these scrape marks from, those exfoliation bars? Like one of those pumice stones?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it was only 2 weeks that I had relapsed. It might have even been less, right? But at some point during this time, someone's like, hey, we've got ecstasy. And I was like, that's great. And so I hadn't done ecstasy in like a decade. Like it had been a hot minute since I had done ecstasy, but I was like, why not? So, and then And then my friends had all of the nicest stuff. I love Bath and Body products, and they had all the nicest stuff. Top of the line, name brand, nicest everything. So this pumice stone was a fine piece of pumice stone.
Yeah.
And I was using it on my feet and they were so baby soft. And I was like, oh my God, my whole body could feel like this. And so I'm all like going on my arms with the pumice stone. And I realized that I'm scraping myself, but I'm on ecstasy. So it's not like I just didn't really care. I was like, oh, okay. And I just
doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but then that's what the police officer is seeing. It looks like I've been like dragged down the road or something on my arms. And he was like, what's going on with your arms? And I was like, oh, okay. So I don't normally do drugs, but
having to sit and explain that story to the cop, he's just like, oh God.
Yes. And I think that, along with all of the AA material that I had in my trunk, explaining that this person whose stuff was in my car was my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Wherever he went. Apparently he ended up like sleeping in a U-Haul somewhere because I was boring.
Yeah, wow.
And I think just like my ability to be honest in that moment. And I told him, I said I was on my way to rehab and I couldn't find it. And I was about a block away and I couldn't find it. Like wow. I had been at that rehab. I left to go to a gas station and I could not find my way back. And my phone died in that moment too. So again, when we look at everything is always happening for a reason. The universe is always conspiring in our greatest good. And even moments like that, it is still working for our highest good. Man. And it should have been my third DUI. I should have been in prison and I should be a felon. But instead, they charged me with disorderly conduct, okay. Which I didn't find out for 2 years because I didn't get into that treatment center, right? So they took me to the Long Beach jail, which was terrifying because I had only seen California jail on TV. So I was terrified to go in there.
A lot of fun people in there, I imagine.
Yeah. Well, it was really interesting. They don't even make you like dress down or anything. Like wow. When you go, I guess maybe until you get sentenced or something. I'm not entirely sure, but I was in like my street clothes for 2 days in there. Wow. Yeah, it was weird. Where every other time I've been arrested and booked, they're like, they put you immediately in the orange jumpsuit. Man. And some strange underwear.
It's crazy.
So I went to rehab one more time after all of this, and I laid my head down in detox, and I told myself, never again. I'm never doing this again. I'm tired of not being a good mom. I'm tired of not being a good daughter. I'm tired of not being a good friend. And I'm tired of repeating the same shitty cycle over and over and over and over because I'm going nowhere.
Yeah. And that moment when you made that decision, once you got into that state of mind, it was just a closed chapter.
Yeah, but I didn't trust it because for me, it had been that the entire time. And yeah, I was terrified of myself. So I knew that I had the ability to do it. I just had to roadblock every little thing, and I had to do everything I didn't want to do. And like, all these things, because they tell you when you come in recovery, you have to change one thing and that's everything. And it's like, okay. But
simple enough. Like,
yeah, they don't like break it down. That one thing is truly down to a molecular level. And so I think I was in a sober living for about 8 months. Got into a real apartment, and one of my triggers was freedom. So that was a big one for me. Moving into the apartment, I remember I was terrified, and it was one of those resort style apartments. And being from Alaska, you know, like that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like we don't have any resorts.
They got movies every Friday night by the pool type of shit.
Yeah. Like, oh my God. I felt like a king baby. I was like, hell yeah. You know, anyways, I couldn't believe that I had gotten into there. And I want to say I'd only been there for like 2 or 3 days, and I went out to the pool. And I was floating in the pool, and I said to myself, you can have this or you can have alcohol, but you can't have both.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember replaying that thought in my head every time I was doing something that I knew I wouldn't be able to do in my addiction. And that was one thing that kind of kept me afloat, because I don't like, why would I not want to be floating around in a pool instead of like, I don't know, waking up to the police and blood pressure machines. And so
finally those neurons started connecting in the brain. You started seeing it.
Yeah.
Finally,
like,
it was like,
you cannot have a mimosa while you are floating in the pool, Tess. No.
I truly believe, you know, like with my beliefs with the higher power, you know, I feel like sometimes some people are pulled into their purpose immediately, and I feel like others have to go through the trenches, and that when it's finally the time, man, I mean, it's like, because like what exactly could have, like when you really think about it, like what the fuck was going on in your life, all of a sudden, just this change of structure in your brain, it's just so, this is such a dichotomy in comparison to where you were at just a few months before that. Like all of a sudden you're wanting to change, and I'm sure that brought fear into all that shit too, you know?
Yes.
Wow. That's an amazing story, my friend. And like, you know, as far as the relationship with your father and the family that you still have, like how has that changed over the years?
My dad never stopped supporting me, and he never stopped believing in me. And the thing about my family is that we didn't have insurance. And so my dad literally paid for each and every one of those rehab stints out of pocket. Fuck, I'm gonna cry again. That was one of the reasons that contributed to the suicide ideation, was that my dad wasn't going to give up on me.
Love you until you learn to love yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is like so crazy. Like I remember one time being in sober living, one of the many times. And I told him, I said, you need to cut me off. I said, you need to stop helping me. And he said, I will never do that. And he didn't.
Wow.
Yeah. That was not my last time. That was probably like my 3rd time. Yeah.
And what about the relationship with your baby girl?
So that's very interesting. So she was with my dad while I was in California. She was with him for 2.5 years. So I got a year, or sorry, 3.5 years. I got a year under my belt, and then I got that apartment, and I called my dad and I told him I was ready to have my daughter back. And he said, I need another year out of you. So at that point, she'd been with him for 2.5 years. And so I said, okay, like I get it. Like he's working, he's in Alaska. He's not going to put his grandchild on a plane.
Yeah.
To go live with their mom who only has a year. And of course, at that point in time, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I made it like a year. Yeah. Like I never thought.
Yeah.
But no, I understood. And so I just spent that next year continuing to like build myself in my career and everything. And when I got her back, and never went a day unless like I absolutely wasn't allowed to, like in detox or rehab or something, where they put you on like the phone probationary period. Those were the only times that I didn't talk to my daughter. Otherwise, I talked to her every single day.
Nice.
And
she's with you now?
No. So that's where we're going to get into. So I got her back, and she had a lot of resentments against me. And so she was 5 when I went to California, and she was turning 8 when I got her. I got her back like a month before her birthday. So she had a lot of resentments, and she didn't want to hear anything I had to say. She didn't want anything good to happen. Like if I was ever happy about something, like if something good happened at work, or like if I made an impact on somebody's life, you know, she was the first to like shit on my parade, you know?
Man.
And so, gosh, we went through so much. She was like vandalizing the school. She was threatening kids. She ended up on a 5150 after drawing a picture of her killing someone. And all these behaviors started when she got back to me. And I never saw that coming in a million years. I thought we were going to be thick as thieves. I thought we were going to be like Gilmore Girls. I thought we were going to be 2 peas in a pod, peanut butter and jelly. No.
Lamb and tuna fish.
Yeah. I was like...
Please tell me you get that reference. That's from an Adam Sandler movie. I don't think that's a good combination. No. I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I did
what
not
the fuck is wrong with this guy?
I was like, lamb and tuna fish. Like, what?
That's so funny. It's from a movie. Sorry.
I'm like, yeah, those seem pretty opposite.
All right, sorry. Go ahead.
Gosh, and so I got her into therapy like immediately, and we're doing therapy and she's doing therapy, and like I'm like on the team with her school and this and that, and I'm trying to get her into sports, and you know, I just like I feel like I'm doing everything that I can and nothing is working. I got to tell you, our final moment was over Cheesecake Factory cheesecake. And I got to tell you, I understand her side of the fight. I do. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was over a piece of cheesecake, and it turned, she like, just ham. It just went ham. She had no problem hitting me, kicking me, or punching me, which is like absolutely insane to me because I've never put a hand on her in my life. And I know for a fact my parents never did. I'm like, where's this violence coming from? Your dad. And then and her dad's 6'3" and he is like 400 pounds. And so I'm like, she's 8. She's like my size, dude. Wow. She keeps this up in a couple of years, she's gonna kill me. Like, yeah. So I reached out to her dad and I said, hey, like, I need some help. Like, I don't know what to do at this point. And he is like, oh, I didn't know about any of this. Well, he hadn't been in the picture for like 8 years. So of course he didn't know anything about any of this, but I've stayed in communication with his family. My daughter went to go visit her grandma and said that she never got the opportunity to know her dad's side of the family, and asked if she could stay with them while I was in my master's program. Okay. So we call a family meeting, blah, 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 blah. Decided that's what's best. And she is doing amazing with her grandma. Good. And that's another one of those situations that I feel I experienced to be who I am today in the profession that I am in today, to be able to help people, because I think it's probably rare that you hear about a parent getting their child back and then their child choosing to not be with them, which is okay. You know, like I can now in hindsight see that everything is working out exactly how it's supposed to. So
and just as you had to go through that situation, you know, with all of the hardships that you experienced to get to where you're at today, there's going to come a point in time in your daughter's life where she's going to be curious. She's going to want to have a conversation. Maybe she's struggling with something, and everything will come back. You know, everything will come back. And I'm hopeful of that, for real.
Yeah. Like right now, our relationship is better than it's ever been. Good. Because when she was with me, everything that I did was just being a therapist. Yeah. You're just being a therapist. I'm like, I'm just trying to help you.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. But no, I mean, dude, I really want to thank you for coming through and sharing your story with us. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been cool to be able to make a new friend, dude. You're fucking awesome. You're pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Me
for
too.
sure.
If I could leave everybody with something, it would be to truly understand what it means to not be hard on yourself, and the concept of water under the bridge, because life itself is fluid and emotions are fluid. And as we continue on our journeys, we're constantly going to be challenged with different obstacles that are going to put us in different positions. And being hard on yourself for not always being right, accurate, or having made the right decision is not beneficial. Just learn the lesson and move on.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up one more time for our new friend, IOP therapist, Miss Tess. She came through. She killed it. We appreciate you. For all of the listeners, man, we drop these every week. If you or a friend, loved one wants to join us here on the Rcast, all of the details that you need to get in contact with me are in the show notes of this episode. But until next time, you guys have a good one. Much love. God bless. Peace. What's going on, everybody? This is Buddha from the Rcast, and I just wanted to thank you for checking out this week's episode. It means a lot, and if you could share it with a friend or a loved one, somebody in need in recovery, or maybe somebody who just needs that little bit of extra positivity in their life, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you would like to join us here on the Rcast, either in the studio live or online, hit us up. The links are down in the show notes of this episode, and on there, you can find direct links to our main website here at Americas Rehab Campus and all of our social media platforms. Follow us. We keep the posts positive and motivational, focused on recovery, health, and wellness. As you know, in this modern day and age, we need as much love as possible, y'all. And as always, if you or somebody you know is in need of substance abuse treatment, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We're open 24 hours a day, and our direct phone number is 1-833-272-7342. Once again, that phone number is 1-833-272-7342. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your day. Much love and God bless. Peace.